The first time Admiral Rebecca Hale laughed at the call sign Iron Ghost, the entire briefing room went silent. Not because it was funny, but because no one there had ever heard anyone laugh at that name and lived to tell the story. The man assigned to that call sign sat at the far end of the steel table, posture straight, uniform worn thin at the edges, hands folded like he was holding the weight of the ocean itself. He did not react. He did not blink. He only lowered his eyes for a moment, and in that small movement lived a past so heavy it could bend steel. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet strength of people who carry more than the world ever sees, please like this video, leave a comment, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach the people who need them. Admiral Hale had earned her position the hard way. She had fought through doubt, discrimination, broken expectations, and her own impossible standards. Her reputation was sharp, decisive, intimidating. She had led missions that redrew maps and changed wars. But that morning, when she glanced at the personnel file in front of her and saw call sign Iron Ghost, something in her broke the seriousness of the room. She scoffed. She said it sounded like a bad comic book villain. She said she preferred names that meant something. She did not know that every person in that room already knew what it meant. His real name was Daniel Cross. He was 39 years old, a widower, a father of two, and the most decorated operator the Eastern Command had ever quietly buried inside paperwork and silence. Daniel's days began long before the sun. He packed lunches with careful hands. He braided his daughter's hair from a YouTube tutorial he had watched 100 times. He taped his son's broken backpack zipper with black electrical tape because the boy liked how it looked tough. Then he drove them to school in an old truck that rattled like it had seen better decades, kissed their foreheads, and disappeared into a world that was never allowed to touch theirs. Hen Daniel's wife died in a roadside explosion overseas. The same command that sent him into hell gave him 2 weeks of leave and a folded flag. He returned to work because he did not know how to sit still with grief. He learned how to make pancakes. He learned how to read bedtime stories with his voice steady. He learned how to be everything at once. Oh, one ever wrote that part in his file. Admiral Hale arrived at the base to oversee a multinational operation involving classified reconnaissance, asset recovery, and a delicate political balance. Daniel had been requested by 3 different departments. He had been pulled out of quiet, low-profile assignments and placed directly under her command. She didn't like that someone she had never met came with so many silent recommendations. During the first week, she questioned him constantly. His decisions, his strategies, his reluctance to speak unless necessary. She mistook his restraint for uncertainty, his calm for weakness. She did not see the scars on his knuckles, the way he mapped every room before stepping inside, the way his eyes always found the exits and the shadows. The other operators noticed. They said nothing. The mission unfolded in a remote mountain corridor where surveillance drones had gone dark and 2 intelligence teams had vanished. Weather moved in fast. Communications dropped without warning. The operation was already unraveling when the convoy was hit. Daniel was not leading the unit. He was assigned rear security, the least visible role. When the explosions split the road open and turned the air into fire, the front vehicles were disabled, the teams scattered into cover. Chaos poured through the valley. It was Daniel who moved first. He ran straight through the smoke, grabbed the wounded point officer, and dragged him behind a burning transport. He organized the defensive line in seconds. He anticipated the ambush routes before the enemy even appeared. He called in support using an emergency frequency no one else knew existed. When the helicopters arrived, it was Daniel who guided them in blind, through cloud and debris, with nothing but his voice and a handheld tracker. The mission survived. Barely. Admiral Hale watched the aftermath from a ridge, her helmet streaked with ash. The smell of metal and fuel clinging to her. She found Daniel kneeling beside one of the injured, holding pressure on a wound with hands that did not shake. Later, she reviewed the footage, the timing, the decisions, the impossible precision under pressure. She said nothing about the call sign after that. The second incident came weeks later during a covert recovery deep in contested territory. The extraction point collapsed. The team was surrounded. No reinforcements, no air support. Command advised retreat, but the terrain made escape suicidal. Daniel made a different call. He led a diversion alone. He moved through the enemy perimeter like something not entirely human, silent, unseen, efficient. He eliminated the threat without triggering alarms, opened a corridor, and guided the team out while carrying a wounded operative across his shoulders. When the dust settled, the phrase "Iron Ghost" was whispered with something close to reverence. Admiral Hale finally asked about it. The answer came in a sealed file she had never been authorized to open until now. Daniel Cross had been declared missing in action 5 years earlier, officially dead for 36 hours after an operation went wrong behind enemy lines. He had survived with shrapnel in his lungs, broken ribs, a fractured spine, and frostbite that nearly cost him his hands. He completed the mission anyway. He returned alone. The enemy never even realized what had happened. They called him the Iron Ghost because... See, he came back from places no one else did. But the file did not mention his wife. It did not mention his children. It did not mention the night he stood in his kitchen holding a folded flag while his daughter asked when her mother was coming home. The turning point arrived on a rainy Tuesday evening. Daniel was late to base, not for a mission, for paperwork. He had been called to his son's school because the boy had gotten into a fight defending a classmate from bullies. Daniel sat in a plastic chair with scraped knuckles and wet boots, listening to a principal talk about discipline while his son stared at the floor. When he finally reached the gate, Admiral Hale was waiting. She was not angry. She was curious. She followed him to the parking lot and saw the inside of his truck, the child seats, the school drawings taped to the dashboard, the grocery bags, the quiet, ordinary life of a man she had only known as a weapon. Something shifted in her. Over the following weeks, she watched him differently. She saw how he never took extended deployments, how he always volunteered for operations that ended before sunrise, how he ran phone drills with his kids every night at the same time, how exhaustion never slowed him but loneliness did. Then came the mission that almost broke everything, an extraction of civilian hostages from a collapsing regime, political pressure, bad intelligence, weather closing in, the window shrinking by the hour. The insertion went wrong. The team was pinned inside a half-destroyed compound while enemy forces closed in from all directions. Communications were jammed. Supplies were low. The hostages were terrified. Daniel volunteered to stay behind and cover the evacuation. He did not argue. He did not hesitate. He simply handed his watch to the youngest operator and asked him to give it to his daughter if he did not return. Admiral Hale watched from the command feed as he disappeared into smoke and fire. For 27 minutes, they believed he was gone. Then a single signal appeared on the screen, one blinking dot moving through impossible terrain. Daniel's voice came over the channel, calm, steady, guiding the team home. He returned on the last helicopter, bleeding, limping, face gray with exhaustion, but alive. That night, Admiral Hale stood alone in the hangar long after everyone else had gone. She finally understood the weight of the name she had mocked. Weeks later, she requested his transfer be permanently approved under her command. She never laughed again. And one evening, as the sun fell over the base and the world felt briefly quiet, she walked past Daniel sitting on the tailgate of his truck, his kids laughing beside him, sharing sandwiches and stories from school. She stopped. She nodded. A silent acknowledgement of a man who carried war in his bones and love in his hands. Near the end of this story, if any part of Daniel's journey touched your heart, his strength, his sacrifices, his devotion. Please like this video, share it, and subscribe. These stories only live when you carry them forward. And before the ending, I ask you one special thing. Leave a comment with the words, "I believe in the Iron Ghost." Because sometimes the strongest people are the ones the world almost overlooks. Daniel Cross never asked for recognition. He never asked for medals or praise. He asked only for enough time to raise his children and enough strength to keep the darkness from reaching them. And somehow, against everything he had survived, he did. That is the story of the Iron Ghost, and now it is yours.